Hey everybody, hope you're all doing well. This is Derek Thorne here with you with Fonville Morrissey. I wanted to hop on for a quick moment to kind of talk about some general tips and advice regarding showings. A lot of people, particularly buyers right now, are asking how real estate is doing, how the market is being impacted by everything that's going on with the coronavirus and the stay-at-home orders and everything that have been put in place. And so I wanted to kind of explain that a little bit more, and then also go into some ways that we can make sure we're doing our part to make sure that this doesn't spread any further than it needs to. As far as showings go and just real estate in general, we had a lot of advocates with the Raleigh Regional Realtors Associations who worked hard to make sure that real estate was still deemed essential. That was a key point. There were literally thousands of transactions all across the state that were hanging in the balance. We all, as agents, had clients who quite literally could have been homeless had we not found a way to get this worked out. And so we're glad that they did their part in making sure that it continued to be essential service. And kind of moving forward from that, there's been a lot of things that have changed. We're still allowed to operate, but almost everything is being done remotely. So even closings, which are always notorious for having to be done in person, attorneys, a lot of people are having to kind of do a drive-by, almost like drive up to the attorney's office, sign the papers in the car with the mask on and everything. And it's really changed the way a lot of us do things. Now, as far as showings actually go, like seeing the home in person, it depends on the area. As far as the general Triangle area is concerned, we're still technically allowed to do showings. Durham County is the exception to that. They've got a little bit stricter of a rule, and they're kind of getting over the malware attack and everything that they had as well. But they're one of the few places that's still in the Triangle area not allowing showings in person with buyers at all. The agent can still go there and do like a FaceTime or something like that, or they can still have an inspector and appraiser go in, but we're not allowed to physically have buyers come inside the home in Durham. Now, the rest of the Triangle, we're still allowed to do showings, but it's almost seen as like a last resort option. We want to make sure you exhaust every option possible, because we don't want people to risk getting exposed to the virus. We don't want you to risk getting contaminated yourself or contaminating someone else. And so we want to make sure we're doing all the steps we can to make sure we keep people safe during this time period. So now, as long as people are following along with that, we should be good to go. So I'm going to give you guys 8 tips to follow when you're trying to rule out a home before you ever set up a showing. Because a lot of times buyers are looking at different properties and trying to see what home might be the right fit for them. And in the past, we could usually have a list of homes that you wanted to go see and go tour all of them in a day. Now we're having to be a lot more diligent in making sure we can rule out or weed out potential properties that you really aren't that interested in, and make sure that we're staying safe and avoiding as many houses as possible. Now, one of the first tips, well, first of all, before I even get into that, the question you need to ask yourself, and if we're really being serious, is at the beginning when you're looking to set up an appointment and you're calling your realtor, asking them to schedule a showing, the question you have to ask yourself is, if I see this house and I like it, am I ready to put in an offer today? Am I willing and able to make an offer on that property right now? If the answer to that question is no, you don't need to go see that house. A lot of times we say, well, Derek, I'm just trying to get a feel for the market and see what's out there and kind of get my feet wet in the real estate market. Now is not the time for that. We have to be dead set on making sure that homes that you see in person, you are literally ready to buy. You've got your pre-approval ready. You've ran all the numbers. You got everything set to go, and you're bound and determined to find a house. That's when we know you're ready to do some showings. Now, step number 1, the first tip that you want to look at when you're trying to figure out whether or not a home is right for you, obviously the photos. First and foremost, almost 90% of buyers are starting their search for a home online. So photos are always going to be a huge part of you being able to tell whether or not that home is the right fit. Look through the photos, try to find out if the layout and everything, the upgrades and features are in line with what you're looking for. Now, the one thing I always tell buyers with photos is our goal with photos is not to just send you a list of photos that tell you exactly what the house looks like and gives you a complete overall view of everything in that home. Our goal with photos is to tease you just enough to get you in the door. If we show you too few photos, you'll be scared to think there's something wrong with the house. If we show you too many, you'll be able to rule it out. And so our goal is to get you in the door. If we can get a buyer in the door, the chances of them purchasing that home have gone up exponentially. And so remember, that's the goal with photos. So you never want to look at that as your sole resource as determining whether or not you want to buy a home. They're not going to show you all the undesirable things that you may or may not want to see. Now, the second thing you want to look at, which has become a lot more popular now, is virtual tours. Okay, so virtual tours, they've been around, but we haven't really utilized them this much, particularly in this market, up until recently. Now we're having a lot of photographers go through and do a complete 360 view of that home, so you can really get a better feel for the layout and how everything is situated in the home. Now again, it's the same caveat that went along with the first step in the photos. They're not going to show you the mold that's underneath the sink. They're not going to show the stain that might be on the ceiling. They're not going to show all that stuff in the virtual tour. So as great as it is for helping you determine whether or not that house is set up right, it's still not going to show you everything. But again, you will be able to get a general feel for whether or not that layout is something that you want to see. The next thing you want to look at is the old listings as well as the floor plan. So most agents, whenever we set up things for a listing or get a home marketed, we usually bring in an appraiser, and that appraiser professionally measures the home and draws up a floor sketch for us. A lot of times we'll upload it into the MLS. Some agents will make it a part of the photos, and other agents will upload it so that only other agents can access it. So ask your realtor, hey, did they upload a floor plan? If they did, get them to send you a copy so you can take a look through, see through all the little areas, the rooms, and get a feel for whether or not that layout is something that you really like and if it matches up with what you expected it to be from the virtual tour and the photos. Also, in going with that too, when you're looking in the MLS, tell your realtor to look up old listings in the MLS, okay? Now, you don't want to do this because a lot of the websites, they've got inaccurate information, but your realtor, if the house is older, it's probably been listed several times in the past, and so they can go in and they can look up old listings, and there's a chance that those old listings might have photos attached to them as well. If they do, ask them to send you a link to that old listing. That way you can get those photos as well. That you can tell whether or not the current seller has made a lot of the upgrades themselves or if that was already in the home, but also it may have different angles and different sides of the home, so you can kind of get a better feel for it by looking at that as well. Now, the next part, number 4, you want to look at the measurements, okay? Now, we're all bored. We don't really have much to do right now. And so when you're looking through your house, I want you to take a tape measure, go through the different rooms in your house and just measure them. Get a feel for how big those rooms are. And then when you go back into MLS, a lot of listings, we're required to enter in the room measurements for each home. And so, for example, if your master bedroom is 11 by 14 and you look on the listing and you see that they've listed the master bedroom as a 10 by 10, if you're looking to upsize, that's probably not going to work for you. And that's an easy way to kind of reel those out. A lot of people just kind of overlook that information or don't really pay attention to it. And so that's an important thing for you to do. But we're all very visual people. And so it's important for you to kind of get a feel for it. So start measuring stuff in your house today to get a feel for what works best for you. The next thing is number 5, Google Earth. Okay, for many of you, most of you familiar with that, Google Satellite, Google Earth, Google Maps. Go in and just Google the home and see if you can get a bird's eye view of that property. You can get a street view of the home. There's so much, it's almost creepy how much you can see of a person's home online. But go through and look to see, like, hey, does it back up to a major road? Is there a railroad nearby? Does it have a dip in the ground? Is the driveway really steep and I couldn't tell that in the photos? All of this stuff you can tell just by looking at Google Earth and trying to get a feel for how that home looks and getting a good look at the street view as well. So utilize those tools. They're there for you to use. Number 6, the county maps. I don't know how many of you are familiar with it, but each county in North Carolina, we all have a website where you can look up the tax records and information on that home. Wake County in particular is one of the best that's in this area. They have a mapping feature where you can go on their website, click in the address to a home, and there's a link in the top right corner that says maps. If you click on that, it'll take you to an interactive website where it'll show you everything about that property. It'll show you the parcel lines. They'll have layers that you can put on so you can see whether or not it's in a flood zone or if there's an easement or something that goes through that property. It's an excellent resource to use. Realtors, we use it all the time. And so by all means, you guys take advantage of that. There's no cost or anything associated with it. Just a simple Google search, again, will help you figure out that information. So use those tools. That's the county maps. Some of the smaller counties, you know, the Harnett counties, maybe the different ones in the surrounding areas, theirs aren't as advanced as that, but if you have that option available, by all means use it. The next is a good old-fashioned drive-by. Kind of like our parents and grandparents used to do, looking at houses, okay? There was a time before the internet existed where people had to literally drive up to a home to see what it looked like from the outside. And so utilize that time for yourself today. If you find a home that you're really interested in, take some time to drive there, see what the commute is like, see if there's anything weird about the property. Like maybe you have to make a left turn out of the neighborhood without a stoplight. That's really annoying for me. Might not be for you, but you can see those things when you're actually driving there in person. Now, notice I said drive by, okay? I didn't say drive by and run up to the window, look inside, see if anyone's there, go through the backyard, trample through the homeowner's garden and everything like that. I said just drive by. Do not get out of your car, okay? If you have an approved showing, it's okay for you to do that. But if you don't have an approved showing to see that seller's home, what you're doing in that moment is called trespassing, and we don't want to do that. That's illegal. So do not get out of the car. Just drive by, take a look, get a feel for how the property looks, and then keep on driving and let your agent know whether or not you'd like to see that place and see what the inside of the home looks like as well. And last but not least, tip number 8, come up with a list of non-negotiables, okay? A list of things that you have to have in that home, and stick to that list. It's one of those things where it's easier said than done. It sounds like common sense, but you'd be surprised, okay? If a non-negotiable for you is you have to have 3 bedrooms and 2 full baths, do not go look at a house that's 2 bedrooms with 1.5 baths, okay? I know that it seems like common sense, but here's what happens. People will go out and they'll see a couple homes. It doesn't line up with what they want at all. They'll see that there's not a lot of inventory on the market, so they'll start to panic. And in those instances, what they'll do is they'll convince themselves that they want to see homes that they really don't like, or they know they won't like with it. But they go, well, maybe I'm being too hard on it. Maybe I'm being too picky. No, come up with a list of non-negotiables and stick to it, okay? Don't go see houses you know you don't want or that you know you won't like from the get-go. And your agent will do a good job of preparing you for that as well. They'll be able to let you know, like, hey, that doesn't line up with anything that you've told me thus far. And so you need somebody like that in your corner to help you figure it out. And so these are all just tips to help you kind of rule out and figure out whether or not that property is really something you want. Because here's what we don't want to have happen. What we don't want is for the local government and everyone to see that real estate agents and clients and buyers and sellers have just gone on with life as normal, acting like the coronavirus doesn't exist, and just continuing to put people at risk. Because if that happens, they're going to put the hammer down on us and they're going to say, hey, from here on out, we're going to cease all showings. And we do not want that to happen, because that will literally cripple the real estate market and have it at a complete standstill and a halt, and really have a lot of people in a bind. And so it's important for all of us to do our part in being diligent and ruling out homes before we go see them. Make sure seeing the home in person is a last resort option. Okay, so I hope that you guys will take those tips into account. Stay safe, and as always, I'm here to help. If you want to start your home search, I'm happy to help. I just helped a buyer get under contract earlier today. I'm here for you as well. So let me know if you have any questions, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Have a great afternoon.